So, uh, thanks, Simone, for having me here. This room is like a very strange room for me because I ran a Friday night series here for a couple of years, and I did so much in here. I showed films, and we had like a 24-hour DJ party here. I brought a circus in here with flamethrowers and stilt walkers, and now it's like so sedate. What happened here?
It's Monday.
That's a good point. I don't want to talk too much, but it's nice to read here. Yeah, it's cool. I'm going to just go through some poems and just read them. I don't know much to say other than this. Here's a poem called Caucus. Injun kin, you mean that brown crusty stuff, meaning paint, told and forming whole, miraculous apparition, a bear in a pink bunny suit. Man, oh man, lost in application synonym, crisp in the venue, this auditorium, where listening happens. It's the doggerel, kitty cat, a crystal flute, a magnum filled with Krug. Ever have it, a firing tank in a field of flowers, azalea in milk jar, wet pickles, flip-flops, some platonic kiss in hand. By the by, roars, ordinary, I guess. I miss your penmanship. Recall Caligula or the softer Thomas Jefferson. Once in a coon's age, a tower falls where sage sleeps, covered to the neck in rubble, punk. Madam, the article, a type of scarf, perhaps one parasol in a sun of parataxis. And then since Simone mentioned that poem, Latina, which I kind of wrote as a commission for Vincent Katz. It's like, hey man, we're doing this issue and I want you to write a poem about Latinx. And, I had a friend who was Portuguese, and so I was quoting some stuff that she was saying, and then quoting another friend, thinking about Latinx. Vis-a-vis curricular, per pro forma, mere gesticulation, to reverb, to chorus, multiplex fora, interbeings, protostasis, reciprocal, for or against verses, word place, obstacle, stand in for, verge, ensuite, et to vamp with limitation. Christopher, you are so American, my ex might say Protestant, X as letter, prepositioned, outer marked, since text can be shaped, deformed by indentations of breath, XO, made of, into something hollow, bearing simplicity, missing tongue, an abstraction in short, perhaps terminal, succinct, like rhyme, a moment of parallel between here and not. Perfection equals end, standard par. To write, to touch, troubling, filling in the spaces. Absence inquires with each step, that which is window-like, reaching through to examine penumbra of elbow, of wrist, of hand, versatile behind sketch, in a visible field hearing difference in language pangs form class. Radio for Ted Williams, the homeless dude that got famous a few years ago, drug addict. I watched this YouTube clip a bunch and took a couple phrases from him. Radio. If you don't know what the A secret fiction is, how can it depress you? Or was it the theater of the mind as in reified by, and I love radio? Or the real question, latent in the original question, how could it be? Only some aspect of intent shown here manifest done so to tell me. And this is for how it goes to glass, fact with crevices, waves upon it. As for many subjects, all sides though delimited by opulent tenor object. As buried in amber flash, there is a little bit every day between us. To capture fidelity, otherwise disembodied, to filter emptiness, radio. Here's a poem, another poem, as if there weren't any more. Future Colors, Raphael Rubinstein was publishing a bunch of poets who were concerned with contemporary art for the summer issue of Art in America this summer. And I had some notes from one of the crits from the graduate school at Micah, and in the class there was, in the crit, I was taking notes, and I just kind of turned them into this poem, expecting it to get published in that magazine. He published something else, but Future Colors. A promiscuous sun begs why this particular thing, spraying dissipating rays, it seems, means or doesn't get up and run to force, need, however unwanted. Plaster, capsule, collateral, precision in voice and subject, now walking along someplace. Why should it be named? In latency of void, habit, cavity fill, material interactions embrace the way word takes mouth, enslaved, intuits, action, attraction, spirit thief, expanding over book, telling, dying whomever was sucking, slurping, tongue as ode to bureaucracy, to watch stomach, chest, throat, arm components rise, fall, discombobulate, be enterprise, pass vessel back and forth, state of feeling, this unnerving conduit, loving specifications, sinks into bolster of living flesh. What is future? What is craft? Suddenly becomes a face, specific but ambiguous, either meridian or phase, distance just enough to ask, why do you feel, in queer, prosaic terms, which attended to leads to magic, or at least fruitful unpredictability, so ruthlessly making mouth around feeling. There is an eye for it, indexical to nothing save itself, reflection of sorts, in session, daring difference, if it were, as opposed to, if such a premise, imagined, followed, sounding together, not so divided from gifting subject with collectibles, temporality, charm, a fabulous take on death or love of the object in its circumstances, corresponding telepathy, the immortality of color description, the extras and the teamwork of the senses afterwards to me. This is the last poem in the book, but not the last poem of the reading. It's a funny poem because I wrote it at some friends of mine's house, at their house, Christmas 2010. And I had no idea what was going on with them. They're since divorced. And I was kind of like, just kind of siphoning off the silences between the two of them and what they were going through, and I was playing with their kids. And I literally wrote this poem at their dining room table. And it's kind of, it was a predictive poem in a way. Blue Star Fame Index. Emergent occasions to order element from ideal height. How do you know about them? One implausible copy after another. Sudden synthesis or leavings from an acrophobe, quotable. 2. As destined to fail as beauty as fear, which is never final to recurring astonishment, alone in a room, the theory goes as disappearance, as breathtaking, as sitting in a chair, ranking excursion, 2 as dramatic composition. Three. As if just because you didn't know it was there doesn't mean it wasn't there. And only the minute I let you down, you know I'm in love with you. And only if you'll help me with what really concerns you. 4. Symptoms staged in diaphanous scapes, a virtual amateur blue star fame index. 5. In other words, conditions. Then I want to digress slightly and from abstraction, I suppose, or maybe it's still abstract. I read a couple of love poems if I can find them. They're kind of corny, but you're gonna read them anyway. Yeah. Here's one called Window. Remember the time it rained all night. We watched from my apartment window, the one in the kitchen, tree branches thrown in streetlight air. Those sounds you wanted to run out into the storm. Watched me as I ran out before you, barefoot, shirtless, jeans soaked. It's hard to write simply why I walk so slowly, its physical pace, with you holding my face, tempering speech with warm hands, strong as we were together, all the business leaning together, sun to leaf, tenses, nectarine, umber. It is important not to rush wavering leaves that will fall in predictable time. From sill and charm to room stillness, internal clicks, shivers, multiple givens withheld. We could forever, it seems, never exactly say why boundless parameters of weather, why people's wild life tampers with our line. But here you come, taking me into moisture, brine, listening to the whiz, breaking wood, will at least peel the grass. This has been written before. Whoever says it hasn't seen our dinner manner at some superlative stage I can only think of. So I can find the other one. Or, there's a bunch of new poems, short. Prose poems. Soft as a melting crayon. Soft as a melting crayon. Describe the color if you can. Two small foxes congress in perfunctory joy. At this hour in the white sky, a raptor floating in concentric circles quiets the air. Everything is by itself, yet dendriform. Imagination in her plastic hours finishes us stereotypically. Absorption in relief suffocates, enlivens, destroys, and frees things. Pick any music you wish to set your mouth ablaze. There is lightness, converse to actual pain, all animals of earth mouthing it simultaneously. Ocean, forest, desert plains, foothills of a once unnamed place contain connecting points destined to splatter into lyric and food. All of you here, but who exactly, to what devoted march forward? Noon. I am feeling, I suppose that's the best way to put it. I am feeling. Perhaps I am feeling a bit too much at the moment, if that's even possible. I shouldn't go into all of the stuff you already know and have tirelessly listened to. Sooner or later, I'll get some things written, some things in my poems maybe. There's nothing particularly wrong. Everyone goes through the mill of a raucous, mellifluous, abrasive inner life. I'm not unique in that regard. Happy to have creativity to engage in, art to make and think about, I have to keep thinking about making things, whatever it is, and whatever we want to call, art as a type of gifting. Maybe just a selfish gift giving, or more simply a gift to the self, to give to others, or to treasure, because I certainly need treasures of the kind where the value is quite basic. I love, or I love them, or I want to trade love with whatever bears love's signatures, such as it is. Posture. Naked grasp for the world, all the weaponry, blueness among the evergreens, nature, violence in the shadows, choreographies, a stranger kind of lovemaking, open beyond notional sedatives, psychic aftermath contours, infinitesimal dilemmas, whether or not to be in space, more presently some plant effect or magnetism, rendering an absence of plumage at the horizon line, an exhibition of lips, a distinguished person arrives. 2:49 p.m. Poetic communion, something like that, while everyone else is taking care of business at 2:49. My day has already been longer than most people have been alive. What we're trading would be fine enough if I could just stop crying long enough to say, I've had enough of this constant leaving. It is not like I haven't proven I'm chronically alone. There's nothing particularly special about that. All these adjectives you keep telling me I use too often, as if I didn't already understand how clearly my vocabulary is so impoverished. You're smarter than me, I suppose. We are not the science of money, architecture of an emotional life, or balance of sensibilities. We are something simpler. At least that's what I've been told. For more accuracy, I look at my daughter's drawing on the desk, which she has titled, A Butterfly in 100 Blades of Grass. That's action on the calendar. A glass of milk, a sedative. Even she knows well the productive use of longing. Distance. Making special the wedding, the funeral, the escape, an absence in the circle of fire, what word could do justice to our continuous wire of sympathies? We search for, in the face of another, prodding with skillful lies, that, of course, the best we can do, to love regardless, to try to be descriptive, to infuse lack of comprehension with language, fanatical excerpts passed along as if sage or radical, choose one belief system or another to define ourselves once and for all. Convention. Transfer of the bar in Berlin. A motionless warp of damaged light tossed back from the background, listener rocking to the rumble of traffic through glass divisions. Feeling is pavement, thought seems some register above it. A black ocean, smart leagues of comfort. How it is the girls love the girls, the boys, whatever between them, some song or another like marriage or the forest, we think disappearing like the invention of plastic or its ubiquity, one power or another, the style variation to make music no matter what, the pure height of a tall glass of beer or the parallels of her pleated dress might say. Company. This is spare, this is abstract, this is a block of text. Before it can become a block of text, it is predisposed to being read. It is given to content, the balance bestowed upon an even number of lines. This is formation and belief. This proves the generative quality of death. It is autumnal. This is arrival and departure. This is terse lateral style. This plastic toy perspires. It is drawn. It breathes into a person. It takes the air and gives it back untouched. Here's another commissioned poem for Bomb magazine. The editors called me and said, hey, there's this artist, Ben Durham. I want you to write something that's a review, but like not a review about his drawings. And so I was like, oh, well, I'll do that. I wrote a 450-word sentence. And my challenge was to actually write a 500-word sentence. But in Berlin, there's a lot of beer. And I fell short, and then finally the editor said, hey, just send me what you got, and I did. And she was like, oh, this is great, we'll take it. So I'm like, okay. Submerged in the aging face lives the infant gaze. And I keep naming the poems after like the first half of a sentence or a first phrase because, I'm starting to feel like titling poems is like this pretentious extra thing that like it doesn't really do anything. So it's like, I'd rather just write the text and then let that be, but you can't do that. So submerged in the aging face lives the infant gaze. Submerged in the aging face lives the infant gaze. Curiosity accompanying the always soft skin, which is even softer, more luxurious in our glistening elder years. Laughter, sadness, unspeakable mysteries of love and loss and destruction and rejuvenating tendency are those constant silences that travel buoying surfaces before, beyond wondering what might have been some kind of light fixture capturing breaking lead into freezing pulp, crystals falling into a cup around her mouth, just beneath his punctum, water pushed forward. It is like more than it is dull hurts excoriating each other for being similar, drinking from the same cup, having escaped from and returned to comfortable prisons for familiar sleep and warm arms, limbs themselves, not enough to be musicians or poets or parents of best sorts or parents at all permitting a stroll through the park after midnight lit by centuries of returning moons, late night birds pausing, migrating, pausing, the whole thing in essence singing for survival, wishing before failure, followed by birth, details, in frequent sense, alphabetical distribution, even earlier than given meaning, after so many small field moves that retell first agony, first pleasure, nothing particularly special to define individuals with breeze between them, otherwise known as affection, perhaps deprivation thereof, when spun out of latent text, any various form that exists may be indistinguishable power, self-same, that determines how flower and replicas persist, astonishing precedence into solidity of trying after to duplicate is the first step in best efforts to reply in concert with isolation itself, developing or flowering, depending, it might be said, muteness is expressive, inarticulacy, an assertive shape, in wood, stone, steel, or flesh, as it were, matter, however it takes shape, speaks, deciding by indecision, in turn guiding hand to drum each circumambulatory round toward evening, sketching hover of the Luna moth at the end of the day, at the end of her day, to grace at rest, having crossed the bridge of facture in word into mouth, as night in other tensions, checking muscle, or river swim, defying tide, beneath constellation, after myth choosing. Things still die beautifully, unlike anything that has died previously. Perfection covers staggering heavens, disintegrating quartz, coral, and particle, each some interim toward a smile caught in the silk netting that cast iridescence and triangular glow, those leaves teasing excretions of some undetermined material world manifest, a thistle in a purple duvet, as white as it wants to be, blood stained made of from before or after persons, comes next disappearance into pressure-filled joy, returned smaller, more precious than a bubble, and whatever air left inside, might it be enough to sustain further togetherness as seasonal winds blow buildings apart, push the kite higher, open sails to turbulent indices. I'm going to read two more. Neither of which are short, but neither of which are technically long. And both unfinished. And one is kind of the title poem of the next book that I'm working on, called And You Should Have This Pleasure. And it's kind of a book all about, well, it's not really about anything. It addresses why love, if love hurts so much, why do it? It's funny because my daughter, we were going up the stairs today after school, and she's like, Mommy said that having babies hurts. She's like, I did want a baby, but now that I know that it hurts, I don't really want to have a baby. And I went into this whole kind of ramble of like, well, you know, we live in Park Slope, and you know, you see people having babies all the time. And I tried to explain to her why women, in spite of having so much pain when they have babies, they keep having them. And I really couldn't do it. That was kind of a baffling moment. And only that to say that, like, I had this thing with the whole love thing. It's like, why does it keep happening if you're only hurt by it? You're destined to be hurt by it. So, kind of what these things are about is that. And you should have this pleasure. And you should say, and you should have this pleasure. Say, for reasons abrasions endured, there is the background, and there is the feeling, the difference between how I think and how I sound in the expression of ideas going soft inside, a model of kindness standing in for more or less apart, its private elation to turn, as always, anything goes into abstraction, a story problem on a flyer, as rare as it is we sit at the table drinking together to this. Shifter, I should explain to you in advance that I can't might be the accurate sensation with name, consent, and envelope, this time inside a different model. You could be anyone thinking back over things, how visual people like to look at things, collecting specific images as reminders of all the pending disasters. That is not to say they will happen the way pending sounds, but I am, certainly as others are, aware that anything we suspect could happen probably won't, but could. I suppose if each of us spending time thinking about possible disappointment stopped, when it does finally occur, it might hurt less. It might, as already may be rare enough to savor. As a manner of speaking, there is the door slightly opened, permitting a shaft of light and a sheath of sound, leaving fragrance, tone from floor to ceiling. You make worlds happen even after every time there is something new in the reading, able to reach into me. Breast summer, holding the wall in question, holding promise to the wall, or deafening abbreviations, unsure, still a noiseless relic, our choke of secret as baffling as wind, the limitless number before us at the border of difference, getting back to the language I love, its gree, its table full of structures, you name them, they are there. as are fuming trees in spring impulse. What about them shine or resist glare in company? Affections register appearances that vanish as fast as they assert themselves. Steps left walking, terrified of this version of indecision, switching back and forth from mind to appendage. It is just that neutral, one articulation after another, leaving again, breathing or barely breathing, breath lacking surface or made up of many, shattered into more against many of air, life breaking its entire figure, cannons lost in us, tuning into your own world, stations form it captures. Is this art or is it your beautiful head? This is another love question, but more universal, I think, and more of a matter of violence. Right? And I said I'm extremely interested in the octet as a form, all of them, you know, from the ballad to the first stanza of the Petrarchan sonnet, and you know, to the use of the 8-line form amongst the troubadours in Southern Europe in the 15th, 16th, 17th, early 17th century. And it's, you know, it's the only kind of formal model that I've ever really given myself, is this in 8 lines. So I said, well, I'll do 8 square, or I'll do like 8 lines and 8 stanzas, and wherever I stop, that's the poem. And I've been working on it since 2005. And I got 6.5 stanzas roughly, but almost finished. Centripetal foam. Clash and sequence everything louder than everything else, important and hurting, keeping recordable the life of a building, a sprinkler on a patch of grass, modal survival, you could touch it, fungal, diligent, looped, or loosely normative, making room for the oscillational between a jar. Mere real things, missing fingers lost in accident, a field dotted with bees, Muriel pneumatic airspeed, for instance, perpetual matriculation, and the cleavage bared, a reflection from the coffee cup fleeing the scene. How the superated form is achromatic about the patinated wax, what it does to the silk of the spider, or the little girl's urge to scratch her father's beard, freeing the kinks, laughing at us. But I am with you, holding a basket full of green apples, imagining what it must be like, too, to drink the centripetal foam, born barreline, slips, turning taste for thirst. What falls in the field lays in the field until it doesn't, or suddenly bursts upon the new face of a stenciled landscape, proliferating pearl in a holding pattern, sublimating the mean. Wanting to be sought, critical instead, what you feel and what you say are different, disposed in folly, as if it were wrong to love your own voice, as if love itself were wrong, standing there, ashamed in the loaded room, the stench of dead animal, its usefulness, a collision in the road. We thought you were Vatic in the constellation, seamless in the fold, but the language bothers you. Suppose it superfluous as air, breaking up on the other line, the making barely heard through the row, a jetty in the tide, rounding the brain, treading the brake, taking the lead. What if, forgotten like midday decaying in a photograph, meaning remained misplaced beneath system, yielding to manual, drawn into demolition, its distant odor, a dense, stagnant fluorescence of industrial waste-polluted still water dammed in a canal. That, too, is a verdant, deadly river held in suspense, poisonous silt, upon which to float, to toss a stone, to spit, to watch it collect the residual brilliance of sun setting in your glass. Dreaming of the dead in this imitation circumvents what you know and what you don't know. obsessions otherwise favored. You sift the light pool, its past and present, theme and variation, innocence and demise, of the infamous recently dead artist. Same is said when a stray bullet enters the soft neck of an anonymous child. You hear of it and barely notice how nervous you are about the fact that you have so little time to care, extinction pending. Doubt flares before endorphins, after delirium, appetite and swallowing, a rotting head in your hands. Smell its diminished breath, drunk from emptiness, white as starfire, its tart juice frothing marinade, pressed by slant of eyes. Vision is crushed at the vessel made of oblivion. The question, which of us the blur, which of us the contour? Love, intellect, derivations of, when we talk, there is gold and copper, an orb of moon, mosquito, or trellis of populations, mapping silence, swells, at least watering our confusions, possibility along the walk. What is correctly remembering when the room spills fragile into lining that contains us? Light breaks again upon light, electricity, repetitious, nothing finished. The way forgiveness works, awkward powers reply to each center of the universe to find expressions of variable obstacle, purposed and fluid. Should you find yourself caught at vertices of the picturesque, to be reflected as static and satisfied by wonder, subject to death, you too spin in transfigured night, vortices of picturesque, to become by cloud perfection, sentiment, fruit, accretion of mineral, touched by the drifting inventory of smoke, drenched in mixture, immersive pointing, behavior itself in general to marvel and pair. And that's where I stop. Thanks, guys.